expensive country in the world according to the economists. So Cairo, Egypt, I love you. Today I will speak on the Singapore economic success and anti-corruption model, whether it can be adapted to Egypt. Singapore has been described as the economic miracle in modern times, as your president has said in the introduction. We have the most top rankings of any country in the world, about 25 of them. We are like the most competitive country, best place to invest, best place to work, most network-ready country, etc., etc. So what is the key to the Singapore economic success model? Before I explain the so-called key to you, let me talk a bit about what I feel is the problem that most countries in the world face today. Let's take the United Kingdom as an example. You want to win votes, you promise more benefits. Then when you become the government, you want to give more benefits, you need to increase taxes. You can't. And so, we try to reduce benefits, even worse. So the outcome for many countries today is higher budget deficits, higher external public debt. Now in the Singapore economic success model, we have budget surpluses in 4 out of 5 years, one of the lowest external public debt in the world, and we have reserves that is estimated to be more than $2 trillion. The highest per capita reserves in the world. So how do we do it? The burden of providing public goods and services in most countries rests with the state. In Singapore, it is shared between the state and the people. That is the secret. Most, if not all, the key to our fiscal, economic and social development policies is based on the Islamic finance concept of the sharing economy. What is the sharing economy in Islamic finance? The risks and the benefits are shared by the stakeholders. So in the Singapore case, the provision of public goods and services, public housing, pensions, healthcare is shared between the state and the people. Let me give you some examples. Public housing. Practically every country or city in the world has a public housing problem. Why? Because every public house they build, the state loses money. Now in the Singapore model, every house the state builds, the state makes money. The excess cash flows are then used to subsidize the very poor and the very low income so that they can have public housing as well. So today,
how do they win? How does it work? How do they get money?
So I will explain.
Okay, yeah, that's system tax.
Those who can afford and want to have a bigger public house in a very popular area will pay higher price for public housing. So the excess cash flows from this we use to enable the very poor and the low income to have public housing as well. So in Singapore, if you're married, your household income is less than 1,500 Singapore dollars, you can have a small public house, 40 meters, almost for free. Because those who can afford and want to are paying more to subsidize those below. So Singapore has won the UN Habitat Award, one of the best public housing models in the world. So in Singapore, we are building public housing to capacity. We only 700 over square kilometers in area. The maximum we can build every year is about 25,000 public flats. And so we do that every year. So right now, 80% of the population lives in public housing. And of this 80%, 80% actually own their own house, which they can sell after 5 years or 10 years. And if you look at history, almost everybody who sold later all made money. Now for those who don't want to own a house, I mentioned only 80% own, the other 20% rent. The lowest rent for public housing in Singapore starts from $20 a month. And that is in the most expensive country in the world.
Wow.
20?
$20 US per month. So let me give you some more examples so you have a better understanding of this sharing economy concept. Pensions. We have been described as one of the most sustainable pension systems in the world. What is to mean by sustainability? Most countries have a big problem with pensions because the funding gets higher and higher, and the state cannot afford the pensions that they promised the people. So in the Singapore pension system, it's what we call a defined contribution rather than a defined benefit system. In other words, everyone have their own pension account. Everyone who works contributes up to as much as 37% of the salary to their own pension account. So it's the people's money. It's not the state's money. Okay? So what does the state do with the money? They invest the money, right? They pay interest to all the pension members. And here's where the sustainability comes. The state keeps a portion of the returns to itself. And with this money, they can do wonders. Economic development, infrastructure, compete internationally. Now, after 60 years of independence, this so-called National Pension Fund is now more than $600 billion, okay, and growing. And so the little bit that the state keeps now is estimated to be about $19 billion a year. So the state, using a sharing economy system in pension, is able to have 19 billion extra every year to do whatever they want. So in Singapore, you don't have to worry that, oh, I won't have a house, or I won't have I have a problem if I retire, right? Because of this system. Let me explain another one to you, and this one you will laugh, right? It's the healthcare system. Now, of course, like most countries, we have private healthcare, we have public healthcare. But in the public healthcare system, if I fall sick and I go to the public hospital, I can choose. Do I want a room to myself, 2 to a room, 4 to a room, 6 to a room, or more? So those who can afford and want to will pay more. And so this excess cash flows is enough to enable the very poor, the very low income, to have universal healthcare, quality healthcare that, as the system developed today, don't cost the government a lot of money.
There's no private healthcare.
There is private healthcare.
There's also private
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was reading in the Egyptian Gazette a few days ago, PM stresses efforts to curb inflation, sustain public spending on healthcare education. You won't see this in Singapore because there's no problem with the public spending on healthcare, public housing, pensions, education. Then in the same newspaper I read, decent life, living social contract. Now in Singapore, I've done this in more than 40 countries. What is marvelous is that the people who are from government, like some of you, sitting in the audience, when I explain the model to them, I tell them, you know what's the greatest thing about this model? Any government who is able to adapt the model well stays in power forever. After 60 years, we still have the same ruling party. In last year's elections, they won 75% of the votes, about 90% of the seats. So the magic, the secret to governments remaining in power is to provide economic and social prosperity to your people.
Is it free election? So
Oh, of course it's free.
free.
Yeah, of course free election. I mean, you know, Singapore is a democracy.
Yeah.
How not to be? Okay, now I shall move on to a slightly different area. As many of you have asked me to talk about corruption. Now, the Singapore model can be adapted, but you must be able to slowly eradicate corruption, because corruption hinders any economic success model, even the Singapore model. So I'm going to explain to you the Singapore anti-corruption model. 3 points. Number 1, very easy to get caught. We had a telephone that anyone can call. I think this person is corrupt, because when I came into the room, he had a big stack of cash in his hands. Right? Okay. You're the treasurer or something.
Very corrupt.
So, the first point, very easy to get caught. Now, of course, if someone calls and maliciously accused you of corruption, that person will get into trouble as well. So the propaganda for corruption was tremendous. When I was little, when I watched the television, report corruption, report corruption. There was even the rumor of a son who reported the father for corruption, and the father was jailed for many years.
Wow.
Point number 2. The penalty must be very severe. Our first cabinet minister, who was found corrupt, he was asked to hang himself, the rumor, and he did.
He did hang himself?
And so we constantly remind people that the penalty is very severe. Last year, a cabinet minister was sentenced to 12 months jail. Do you know what was the corruption? $100 wines from his friends. Football tickets from his friends. Theater tickets from his friends. What we call peanuts in Singapore, very small amount.
Yes.
The biggest corruption that he was found guilty of, he took a seat in the private jet of his friend who brought the F1 Grand Prix to Singapore to fly to Dubai to watch the F1 with his friend. And that was the biggest item. So we constantly remind people that the penalty is very severe. If I give you $100, or you give me $100, and we receive it, both of us now will go to jail for 3 to 6 months. The third point is the one that takes a bit of work in order to make it work. Because in most countries that I speak, and also in Singapore when we became independent, civil servants cannot survive without corruption.
Exactly.
So unless you can clear this problem, the corruption will never go away. So what do? We ask civil servants, we do surveys. What are your financial concerns in life? The civil servants say, healthcare, I'm worried if my family falls sick, what happens? Free healthcare for all civil servants. What else? Education, I'm worried my children cannot afford to, Okay, not free, but low cost education for all the children in the country, not just civil servants. We have a very unique education system. The education system is very low, very cheap, until they go to university. Because once they go to university, almost every student takes a student loan for his tuition. And after he graduates, after 6 months he starts work, he's given 10 years to pay off the tuition loan. And so you find that, how come the sharing economy works wonders? Because the people are able to accept that they share the risk and the benefits with the state. So I go on, healthcare, education. What else do civil servants want? Oh, I want a roof over my head. Okay. We give you low-cost public housing, like I explained to you, not just to civil servants, but everybody else. What else? Oh, pension. Okay, no problem. We'll give you a pension for civil servants. You must be wondering, if you give all these things, not just to civil servants, but to the whole population, it must cost the government a lot of money, right? The answer is no. Because as the system developed, the state spent very little money. Why? I was a civil servant before. All the civil servants were given the option to convert to the pension scheme and the healthcare scheme of the ordinary people. And most of us converted. You know why? I have to work all the way to 55 to get my pension and my free healthcare. If halfway I stop for some reason, I get nothing. So most of us converted. So today, right, if you add up all the years, it costs the government very little money to solve the problem of corruption of civil servants.
I don't understand this. I don't know. What do you mean you converted as a civil servant?
Okay, so as a civil servant, I get free healthcare, I get free pension when I reach 55. Okay, but I must work all the way to 55. If halfway I drop out or something, I get nothing. So I was given the option, like all my civil servant friends, you can convert to the normal healthcare and pension scheme that the whole population is in.
It's for everyone.
For everyone. So most of us converted.
The private one.
You know, the national, the public.
Public.
For everyone.
For everyone. So most of us converted because, you know, who knows whether I can work all the way to 55 to get my pension healthcare. I myself convert to the one that, everybody is in.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So on that note, I would be happy to receive any questions or remarks. Thank you very much.
There is no private sector for housing?
There is. 80% of the population lives in public housing, 20% in private housing.
I understood 80% was owned and 20% people pay rent. So I misunderstood. So 80% is public housing and 20% is private. And this is for the rich, the 20%, or who is?
Singapore is probably the top 5 in the world for the most expensive private real estate.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Actually, it has been a really good speech, but you made the focus on the current situation, but Lee Kuan Yew was a really harsh dictator and a benevolent dictator, and that's the problem we have in here in Egypt. How to start? President Donald Trump came by democracy and by election. So where's the egg and where's the hen? That's the problem.
Very good question. The question I get often in the countries that I speak in. The biggest obstacle to adapting the Singapore model is political will.
Of course,
Okay. So you mentioned our founding Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. One of his most famous quotes, and I will say it to you, something like this. I do not make popular policies to win your votes because they are not good for you in the long term. I make unpopular policies that you will not vote for me, but it's good for you in the long term. I don't care whether you vote for me. I only care to make the lives of Singaporeans and Singapore better. And with this rhetoric, as I mentioned earlier, the ruling party has stayed in power for the entire 60 years with a huge majority in parliament as well as votes. I hope that. But you see, sir, I mentioned earlier, wherever I speak, and I see a lot of people from government, I will say this. You adapt the Singapore model, you get to stay in power forever. I was honorary consul of 2 countries, right? Which government doesn't want to stay in power forever? You don't have to worry that there will be a coup, that you will be voted out of office. I hope that helps in answering your question. I think you raised your hand, sir.
Yeah, we talk about government and leadership. I just want to talk about people because obviously this is the other side where things can or cannot work. So, for example, on one side of the scale of the psyche of hard work, you have Japan, and the Japanese worker and Japanese person is just work is sacred. And there is the other side of the scale. Where does the Singaporean person falls? Are they as committed to work and ethics as the Japanese?
Great question. The price of economic success, let me give you some of Singapore's not so good rankings, right? We're the most fatigued country in the world.
Most what?
Fatigue, most tired country in the world.
Fatigue.
Most tired country in the world, the latest rankings.
Wow.
We are the most depressed nation
Wow.
in Asia.
Really?
Okay? So the price, as you have put it, in economic success is everybody wants to work hard. Everybody wants to have a bigger house. They want the children to be able to go to America or United Kingdom to study, whatever, right? Despite the Singapore National Universities being ranked in the top 10 in the world, people still want to go to, like I was at the Harvard Alumni Conference at the Great Egyptian Museum a few days ago, it's everywhere it's the same, right? So there is the price to pay, as you have put it, is if everybody is so focused on economic development. Let me give you a very funny ranking that you give it appreciation. Singapore is ranked second lowest in the world for libido.
For what's that?
Libido. Okay?
Yeah, really?
Yeah. So now is that a very bad ranking? No, it's a very good ranking. You know why? How do you measure libido?
You mean second lowest, meaning, sorry guys,
Second
libido
lowest.
is very good?
Oh, very bad.
Very
Very
bad.
bad.
Oh, okay.
Very
So, I mean, how do you measure libido? You ask people, right? Excuse me, sir, how often, you do it? Was it good? How do you rate your performance? Blah, 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 blah. And Singaporeans are very honest people. They tell the truth. That's why they're ranked so low. No, that looks like a very bad ranking, but it's a very good ranking because if you want to go to a country to do business, to live, to be a tourist, hey, you want people to be honest, right? So we have good rankings and we have bad rankings.
So libido is bad for both the sides, both the sexes, or only?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea how to measure.
Sorry.
I just look at the ranking. I just look at the ranking. Yes, Alia.
Sorry, I don't want to elaborate more on Mexico, but it makes sense because they are satisfied in their education, in health. They don't have problems, so it's logic, I think, that their libido is not bad.
No, it is bad.
It's very bad.
It is
Very
bad.
But that's strange.
Because they are depressed, they are fatigued, they have no time. So I mean, I think, so it makes sense.
And it wouldn't work in this part of the world here.
They wouldn't be honest. Everybody is great.
Yes, you have another question?
Yes, I have more on an economic side.
Yes, thank you.
Speaking about the Egyptian model, which we didn't really elaborate, I understand very much on that what we're going through now. But to basically to summarize, I'm sure you must be aware that all our loans and all our support, financial support, unfortunately the government tunneled it or funneled it through infrastructure projects, mega projects that are not really, the return on investment does not really impact the life of the average Egyptian, or I'm sure you're aware of that. How do you feel about that, and is there any way to remedy that, even if a new government comes, or are we in a very bad state that it will take, obviously, I mean, I think, yeah, but I would like to learn from you, how do you really economically feel about
Let me give my answer in two
situation.
parts, right?
Yes,
First part,
exactly.
how to solve the current problem, and then the next part, what you can do in the future.
Exactly.
Okay? If you look at the Singapore model, you find that from a cash flow perspective, the state spends very little money on public housing, healthcare, pension. Now, in particular for pension as well as other sources of revenue, we have budget surpluses in 4 out of 5 years. One of the lowest external public debt in the world. And more than 2 trillion estimated in the reserves. So as the model develops, if the people are willing to share the risks and the benefits, and the leaders of government have the political will to say, let's try to adapt, and then we will stay in power forever. Alright, so slowly the problem will go away. Because you won't have to take more loans, and slowly you'll be paying down your loans. The future, the Singapore model for like infrastructure spending or any kind of policy change is quite unique. Before any state authority makes a policy or new policy or policy change, they send out for what they call consultation, normally for 3 months. So everybody can say whatever they like. Oh, I think this new policy should be like this, you know, how it should be changed, okay. And then when the state authority, after all the feedback, makes the policy, they announce this is the new policy or the policy change, another 3 months of consultation. So everybody will say, oh, your policy you come up is, I think you should change this one is good, this one is no good. Finally, after all this, then the policy is implemented. Now the good thing about that is, you have consensus.
Everybody has a say.
Everybody, you can fight, you can debate, you can quarrel, but at the end of the day, oh, we have all come to a conclusion, we all must support it. The culture is such that once they have reached that stage, it's very bad. You say, no, I want to boycott the policy. I know, I've spoken in Lebanon 3 times. The first time I went to Lebanon to speak, this is what I said to the Lebanese. If you're a football team playing the World Cup, you will never win if you are fighting among yourselves. So that is another problem many countries face, I feel, where I've spoken. If the people are not united, no, I won't mention the country's name. There are countries where they decide on a big policy, and then the new government said, no, this is no good, we cancel everything. You know, that is not just bad for the people, it's bad for the reputation of the country. You know, wherever I go, you say, I'm from Singapore. My friends who do business in the world, the moment they say they are a Singaporean company, they get extra, you know, work, no corruption, you know, efficiency, blah, 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 blah. I hope that helps to answer your question.
To a large extent, but it didn't really address my really focusing on Egypt, because you told us how you see it.
Yes, I was at the Harvard Alumni Conference a few days ago, and all the Egyptians were asking me, so how? Exactly. And they all said the same thing. They said, Egypt is so big. It's 100 million people. How can we adopt the Singapore model? My answer to you is very simple. The bigger the country, the easier it is to try to adapt. You know why? You just take one small city or small state and you try to adapt. Yeah, if it works, you'll grow by itself. If you're a small country, you have a problem, you know? Because if you try to adapt, it don't work, you may lose the next election. Okay, so that's my answer to you.
Thank you.
I think I will.
Yeah, just one quick.
Yes, sir.
Actually,
The engineer will probably ask a very difficult question for me.
Actually, I'm answering our president's question. You know, we spend so much money in roads, and everybody knows that maybe 1 kilometer for asphalt is about maybe 20 million pounds. It's very expensive. So I think one way the government has to do is to make us pay for these roads. So to have so many toll gates, and for every 100 kilometers, you have to pay so much money. So the government can get the money back where we build the roads.
Very good engineering question. I have the perfect answer for you.
Okay.
The transportation system in Singapore is quite unique. In the morning I wake up, say I'm going for a meeting, right? Okay, we have tolls. Okay, if you travel off peak, is free. You travel peak hour, the toll is very high, and so the toll controls the traffic.
Smart.
And so you come to Singapore and say, how come there are no traffic jams?
Smart.
Because, right, if you travel during peak hour, you pay a lot. If you
Very
travel
smart.
during off peak, you pay nothing. Okay,
Yeah.
that's one. Huh?
Very
The
smart.
second one is very unique. If you want to buy a car in Singapore, you must go first bid at an auction for a piece of paper to allow you to own a car for 10 years. That piece of paper now is about 80,000 US dollars. So before you even buy your car,
Wow.
you need to bid for this piece of paper.
Wow.
And so with this money, which is billions and billions, the government can build roads free, can provide, metros, you name it, okay? Right, so this is you see, in Singapore it's very easy, right? If you look at it, the very rich people, those who can afford and want to, they pay more for
So
everything.
they pay more tax.
For everything. The tax in Singapore is very low. We have one of the lowest taxes in the world. Corporate tax only 17%. About half the population don't pay any tax at all. Because it's the sharing economy concept. Right? Look, human nature, right? I'm a poor man, so I take the metro. My friends who are rich, they don't. They buy a Mercedes or a BMW, because when they go to hospital, I go to the one that has, four person to a room. My friends want a room to themselves. Because they don't tell their friends, hey, I was sick, but I was in the one room. It's human nature. Yes.
Sorry, I just have to, sorry, I'll have to close the meeting.
Oh,
Please,
okay.
the discussion, no,
Oh.
the discussion is on, whoever would like to
Oh,
continue,
okay,
please.
thank you.
What do you mean by buy a piece of paper, do an auction to buy
It's
it?
okay. Every month the government said, this month I release a few thousand pieces of paper.
Yeah.
So anybody who wants to buy a new car has to go and bid for this piece of paper. So let's say 10,000 people bid, there are only 5,000 pieces. So those who have bid more, they will have a cut-off price. This is the price that you get your piece of
It's
paper.
like a license.
That you can own for 10 years.
But you mean I can't go to a shop?
No, you
buy-
cannot.
هم اللي بيفتحوا كل شهر كم عربية مثلا.
Yes, from the Netherlands.
If I understood correctly, it's really about sharing the risk and benefits.
The
between the
Islamic
people.
finance concept
That's the
of the
thing.
sharing
And
economy.
the basic thing here, there's no trust. I mean, between two governmental institutions here. The basic thing is they mistrust the authorities here. So
Okay.
you need to have a trust in your government, a trust, and this is simply not existent here. In Egypt, you're very smart if you go around the system. If you beat the system, you don't follow the rules. This is this is a basic thing. I think the basic thing is trust in the government and sharing. And here we have a lot of very rich people who will never share anything. I mean, it's all for themselves. So I think this is a basic thing, and I do not know how on earth you can change this here.
I think in the beginning, Singapore had the same problem.
Yeah.
But over time, this problem slowly went away because, especially with the advent of social media, okay, people will write about all kinds of things. And if they're not happy with something the state authority or the government or the university doing, they will write about it, they will talk about it, okay? And with social media, everybody is talking. And so the state and the state authorities of the public institutions, as well as the private companies, they have to respond. If they don't, they will lose trust. Today, it's very simple. If you lose the trust of the people, you can close down your company
Yeah.
tomorrow.
That's it.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I hope this answers your question. So over time, the trust is self-building.
I don't know, I find
It's
it
self,
hard
it
to.
builds,
Yeah.
it builds by itself.
In the point of trust, the government also has to do their own rules. I remember I lived in Brazil for a while, and the transportation system for getting license or renewal license are very corrupted, almost like here. You pay, you get the papers. So So over a morning, what the government did, so let's say the place where we get your papers, let's say there are 5,000 employees, okay? In one morning, they fire all of them, except maybe 10 experienced people. And they put university graduate people in this to do the job. And these 10 experienced people just make sure that these kids, they know what to do. So you enter the place with fresh people, they know nothing about corruption, nothing. So, and it worked. At the end it worked. And people gained the trust of this particular system. So there are different ways of, different models.
Yeah, but I think in Singapore that wouldn't work because, you know, we
No,
don't
we
like
get
to,
lazy.
we always say everything must do gradual change, you know, cannot, you know, overnight. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I need to leave.
Oh,
Thank you so much for coming. Please feel free to continue the discussions.
yes.
I have an important business appointment, and I'm sorry.
Okay.
Very happy to meet you, and we hope to see you again.
Your president is abandoning me to
No, I mean,
Okay, no,
that's
no.
duty calls.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah,
democracy.
yeah, yeah.
This
Thank
is
you, yeah,
democracy.
thank you,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Apologies, thank you so
Thank you.
much. It was a
Thank
great
you,
speech.
thank you.
Thank you.
So I may get back to your question.